Okay, is everything working now? Have I screwed everything up enough? Let's see, that's on, that's off, that's off, that's off, that's live. I think we're good to go. I think we're good to go. Okay. Hello, Shadowcat back. Yes, we're back for the Sunday stream. It is going to be a fantastic day now that everything is working. I managed to go ahead and get everything working and set up and proper and perfect, and then I realized that I never actually connected OBS to the stream. So yeah, I hit the go button and nothing happened. Kind of a little embarrassing, I suppose. But doesn't matter. We're here now. We're here now. We're going to do this. It's going to be fine. Okay. So without further ado, let's get into this because we're getting closer to the end and I want to get as many of these done today as possible. We've been doing this for 11 streams now. This is number 11. I'm ready to move on to something else, because there's still a lot of work to be done for the Magic the Gathering module, and I'm just eager for something different now. So let's go ahead and get everything in that we're going to need. We're going to need our browser, of course. We're going to need to have our spreadsheet so we can write everything down. And let's take a look at what we're doing today and what we hope to get through. Where's the thing? There it is. There's the thing. Okay, so up next we have Undaunted, Improvise, Aftermath, Embalm, Eternalize, Afflict, Ascend, Assist. Sounds like things that we're going to have to do at some point. I don't know if any of these are going to be just kind of like... I'm really looking for the ones that come from just like the franchise sets, because those we'll be able to skip, and that'll save us a lot of time, I think. I hope. I don't know. But we're on 125. That means that we've got about 50 more to go. So if we can get like 15 done today, I think we're making good progress. Anyway, before we do that though, I see that JP is in the chat. Hello JP, good to see you there. And we'll go ahead and get started. And no, the wave doesn't work yet. I don't know how to make the wave work unless I get a different chair. So it's either a different chair or no wave. I kind of like this chair though. It's comfortable. Oh well, decisions for later that I'll probably never get to. Next, we're doing Undaunted. Okay, Undaunted. It's a keyword ability introduced in Commander 2016. A spell with Undaunted costs 1 less to cast for each opponent. Interesting. So, literally, it just costs less for... Now, that's going to be interesting because we have to think about this. In the game, every opponent represents a Planeswalker. However, it does not specify, at least I don't think it specifies, that other Planeswalkers are really a thing. And it only appears in 6 cards. This is one that I feel might be just kind of skippable, honestly. Where's the rulings? Wow, that is literally all the rulings on this. It is a static ability. The function of the spell Undaunted is on the stack. Players who have left the game are not counted when determining how many opponents you have. If a spell has multiple instances of Undaunted, each of them applies. I'm gonna be honest, I don't like this one. It's simple, I'll give you that one. It's not exactly complicated, and if I was going to convert it, I feel like, well, they don't even have an example here linked. It's just Sublime Exaltation, it's a sorcery, it's got Undaunted, and it destroys all creatures. Which, I mean, the more players you have, that could be a lot of creatures. I feel kind of weird about this one. I feel like I'm just going to skip this one. Because how are we going to determine the number of opponents we have? Is it going to be the number of planeswalkers around you? Because that could be several, or it could be none. Again, what we're going to be doing with Pathfinder is we're going to be putting planeswalkers into much more, even though it is fantasy, mundane situations. Like, unless you're reading the books, and I haven't actually read the books, you don't really see anything from planeswalkers outside of the game, where you have two planeswalkers who are viciously fighting against each other. But I mean, what is the life of a planeswalker like outside of that? And what would happen if a planeswalker got ambushed by thieves on the road? I mean, these are things that we'll be able to explore. So when we're talking about Undaunted, if that planeswalker were to get ambushed by thieves on the road, would every thief around them lower the cost? If that's the case, then some of these Undaunted spells could be just free, essentially. And I don't like the idea of spells being free. I mean, I understand that it could happen, but I don't like it. I wonder if we can actually find Undaunted. So, yeah, we don't need this vicious clown anymore. That's horrifying. And yes, the contest was won, and I have to make an exception for clowns, because apparently there are clowns, which means that clowns... That's not where I want to go. Go back. Clowns will have to be allowed to subvert the whole crew thing. Not terribly happy about it, but you know what? I made a deal, and I lost, and here we are. Undaunted. If I search for Undaunted, will it turn up anything, or is it just not going to work? No, it actually did. The times that this thing wants to work and it doesn't want to work is just incredible. Okay, so there's 7 results. And Sublime Exaltation is right here, just like they had in the example. But let's take a look at these. So Sublime Exaltation costs 7. Seeds of Renewal cost 7. And this one is Undaunted. This one is not Undaunted. Neither is this one. The Divergent Transformation costs 7. It is Undaunted. Okay, so I guess there's one for every color. I guess this is a very, very special set of cards. There's one for each color, and that's all there's really meant to be, is one for each color. Which actually kind of begs the question. What's the rarity on this? This is the Coastal Breach, and it's rare. If I look at another one, Curtain's Call, this is the black version, and it is also rare. This means that essentially it shouldn't really be an issue, because rare cards rare spells would be somewhat of a side quest. So in general, the way that I'm picturing this is the way that I see the game running, is when you're picking spells for your character, your planeswalker, you would have the option of picking pretty much any common card that you wanted. I could make it a bit harder, and I could say that because all of these spells and such are supposed to be echoes of things that you've seen, I could make my players actually write down the things that they've seen and keep a list of things that they would like to call back on their next level up. I feel, however, that would overcomplicate things. And I mean, I don't really want to do that. It's kind of like making players keep track of food and water and things like that. A lot of the rules are there. The materials are there. It is possible. A lot of people will simply ignore that, though, because it's boring. Most of the players don't do it. It becomes a complicated issue later on. So what I'm thinking of is that when you level up as a Planeswalker, you'll be able to add any common spell to your repertoire. So what about the rest of them? Well, the way I see it is that uncommons could be things like rewards. So by doing something in a dungeon that you came across on the side of the road, or uncovering some, hidden treasure in the middle of the forest, maybe you find something that gives you an uncommon spell to choose from. This is possible. However, then we get into things like the rares, the super rares, mythic rares, things like that. And then, of course, legendaries. These are things that I think that you could not find unless you actively went looking for them. Which means that all of these Undaunted cards, while I can write the rules, they're very unlikely to actually have any kind of effect in the game. It's a little bit, in a way, kind of like high-level Magic in Pathfinder, because if I come back to Magic here, and I can look at this list and say, this is the Sorcerer Wizard spell list. And we're all familiar with the cantrips here. We've got Dancing Lights, we've got Spark, we've got, Jolt, Mage Hand, Mending, Open, Close. Okay, these are things that we're all familiar with. And even when we get into first level spells, things like Alarm, or things like Grease, Web Bolt, Unseen Servant, Divination, such as Identify. Everybody knows Identify. When we get into Conjurations, Magic Missiles, and things like that, we understand. However, there are 9 levels of magic, 10 if you want to count cantrips. Do you realize how seldom anyone in the world, and I do mean in the entire fantasy world, whatever, area you happen to be playing in, whatever game it is, do you realize how seldom anybody has ever seen 9th level magic? I mean, there's a line that I recall, because I'm going to go way back. Do you remember when you used to get books with games? Like, sometimes they'd be instruction manuals, sometimes they'd have little bits of lore, things of that nature. I remember that when I played Baldur's Gate 2, the older one, previous one, Baldur's Gate 2. In Baldur's Gate 2, and I don't remember if it was the base game or if it was the expansion pack, because we had expansion packs back then. It wasn't just DLC. There was a boss. It was a completely optional boss, and it was a Demi-Lich. Now, what is a Demi-Lich? Okay. A Lich is a wizard or a sorcerer who has managed to make themselves immortal through or by means of magic. And they've done this by literally attaching their soul not to their mortal corporeal body, but to an immortal, unaging object called a phylactery. And this makes liches incredibly dangerous because you can kill a lich, but if you don't destroy the phylactery, they will literally just reform after a period of time. You have to find that phylactery, destroy it, and then it'll stay dead. However, there is technically one step beyond a lich, and this is a demi-lich. Demi-liches are essentially as close as any mortal being can get to godhood. A demi-lich is an entity of almost pure magic. They are their phylactery incarnate. They still have a phylactery, however, that phylactery can be pretty much just ethereal at this point. And the reason I bring this up is because in order to even fight this boss, you have to go through and gather all of the necessary components needed to wake it up. You actually do find one of them rather early, and then you gotta go find the rest of them. And the point of this little side trip here is that in the book, in the manual, they throw in little tidbits of lore. And you can actually get the instructions on how to bring back the Demi-Lich. However, in their own description of what a Demi-Lich is and what it does, they warn you, do not summon this thing. This thing will kill you. And in fact, it will, because the Demi-Lich, as soon as it comes out, the first thing it does is stop time. And then proceeds to just kill off your characters one at a time while you can't do anything about it. So, in order to even begin the fight, you need to be able to counter that. But otherwise, they mention that by the time you are actually ready to fight a Demi-Lich, you are probably swatting dragons for fun. As in, it's not even a challenge anymore. You're going out, you find the dragon, you kill the dragon, you take its hoard. You're probably unfathomably wealthy right now. You have all the best gear. There's nothing else left in the world to challenge you. It is this rare and this powerful. Kind of like all of these 9th level spells, you would have to go looking for somebody who's got these. And that's where I feel like these Undaunted cards belong. Any normal person, even any normal adventurer, would probably never come across these. They would either die before they got there, or they would retire when they got wealthy enough, or they would just retire because they've already done enough and they don't want to die. I mean, it is an option just to go home. It's an option that nobody seems to exercise a whole lot, but it is an option. So as much as I look at these Undaunted cards, I feel like it doesn't matter. There's only going to be 5 of them, ignoring the other 2 that aren't really Undaunted, and you'll never see them. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to I'm going to copy this directly, and I'm going to put it in. Default format. Because at this point, all I really have to do, and see if I can get this to go away. Perfect. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each opponent. I'm going to do this, but I don't really have to do anything about it. Whether it's 1 less per planeswalker or 1 less per foe in general, honestly, I'll never have to resolve it. So I'm going to cheat here. This is me cheating. Go away. No, go away. Nobody likes you. Okay. Improvise. So, improvise is a keyword ability introduced in Aether Revolt. Okay, we're on to the next edition here. I don't even know what Aether Revolt is, but here we go. It says here, number 1, it's on 19 cards, so not exactly a very popular term. Improvise. Your artifacts can help cast this spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1. Okay, this sounds interesting. It does say that Improvise cannot pay for the colored mana inside of the spell's total cost, so that's important to keep in mind. But we've got Battle at the Bridge here as a sorcery. It costs X plus black to play, and it has Improvise. So target creature gets -X until end of turn, and you gain that much life. Okay, so all we gotta do is tap artifacts to do this. That should not be terribly difficult. Now, one of the things that I have kind of struggled a little bit with is how I'm going to handle artifacts. And I see no reason why we can't handle artifacts the same way we handle creatures. If a spell is essentially just an echo of that creature, then an artifact you play can be an echo of that artifact. Meaning that you could have technically as many artifacts as you really want. Now, there will be, of course, some restrictions. Technically speaking, according to the rules in Magic the Gathering, there is no reason why you cannot equip 3 swords on 1 creature. According to the rules in Pathfinder, you can only hold 1 sword in each hand. I mean, that's the most that we can do here. So I don't know exactly how it's going to work out. I suppose if you summoned a 3rd one, you could just keep it on your person and technically could be tapped for power. But I don't see a reason why we can't just take this as is. You're allowed to summon artifacts. And so what we'll need to establish is what happens when you tap an artifact. Now, technically, I don't think you can tap an equipment that is attached to a creature. So I guess I don't need to worry about, what happens if you're holding a sword and you decide you're going to tap the sword. That being said, though, if the equipment is not equipped, what happens then? I mean, I guess it's still just laying there on the ground, right? I don't know. Well, I think that's one of the things we'll have to get to when we get to actual tapping rules. Anyway, for our purposes, though, I think we can use this as is. So, copy and paste. We'll default that. JP says, just install a 3rd and 4th arm. That depends on the game you're playing. This is for Pathfinder. It is significantly harder to install additional arms in Pathfinder. Although, that might be a spell. Alright, so I'm just going to put the 1 there on the end. So your artifacts help you cast a spell. Each artifact you tap after you're done activating mana abilities pays for 1. Meaning that you can't, I don't think you can use a mana rock to for mana and then say that I'm also going to get an additional 1 mana out of this. JP says, don't buy as is, always get inspections. That's good advice right there. Always get inspections first. Okay, next, Aftermath. We were just in Aether Revival or something like that. Now, we're into... Oh, wait, not to be confused with March of the Machine, the Aftermath? Wait, is there something else here that's going to mess it up? I don't know. It's a keyword ability which allows the second half of a split card to be cast from the graveyard rather than the hand. Okay, I think this may be a not applicable. Yes, it is. This is not going to be applicable. Split cards with Aftermath have a new frame treatment. Half of it you can cast from your hand is oriented in the same sense as other cards, while the other half you cast from your graveyard is the traditional split card half. Okay, so much like the fuse cards, this is not applicable. We're not using these. So yeah, it says it's on 54 split cards, 27 whole cards. I'm not dealing with this. Again, I think these break the spirit of what we're trying to do. So no Aftermath cards. The Banhammer is out. Although, what do we have here? Destined? Oh yeah, this one is destined to lead. Which is kind of funny. I do like the puns, okay? I like the puns. And I like that every single one of them is a pun. But I can't use them. Okay, so that saved us a lot of time. How about Embalm? What does Embalm do? So, Embalm is also introduced in Amonkhet. Sounds Egyptian. Embalm is centered in white and blue cards. There's 15 of them. And it says, exile this card from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie with no mana cost. Embalm only as a sorcery. Okay. I have no reason to skip this one. It's just going to be a little bit weird. And JP says, we always hear about the aftermaths, but we never hear about the beforemaths. Well, it's because the beforemaths are the nowmaths. It's only the beforemaths once we get to the aftermaths. But then the nowmaths are gone. And if you ask when we missed the nowmaths, just now. However, we'll get to the aftermaths soon. And if you understood any of that, number one, you're old. But number two, you have great taste. So their example given is the Sacred Cat. And I mean, come on. That is a great cat right there. It costs 1 to play. It's a 1/1 kitty. And it's got lifelink and Embalm, which, again, only costs 1. So when it dies, you're allowed to embalm it. Oh, Peace Unicorn's in the chat. And Peace Unicorn says, new maths? No, not quite. However, good to see you. Okay, so, first things first. We don't have a graveyard as such. Our graveyard is essentially the inverse of our daily spells. So we're gonna have to change the wording of this to make it more in line with Pathfinder. But that shouldn't be hard. So we're gonna do this one from scratch. I'm simply going to say that when this creature dies, you may pay the Embalm cost as a... And it is a sorcery, so... We still are not sure necessarily if we're going to be doing sorceries as... Well, no, actually... I'm going to use it as standard action so far. As a standard action, create a... And it's a... Okay, this says it's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie cat. Create a white zombie version of the creature. Now, interestingly, I'm not sure if this is really that important. Because let's consider. In Magic the Gathering, the tabletop version at least, what this does, it is essentially gives you double the number of creatures. We have to remember that this card, the Sacred Cat here, if you're playing Constructed, which is what we're basing this off of, you're allowed to have 4 copies of this. Okay? Just 4. If you're playing Commander, though, you can have 1. So, what are you going to do? You have 4 of these. And you could play all 4 of them, and your opponent could kill all 4 of them. What are you going to do then? With Embalm, you can technically bring every single one of them back for a second time, essentially doubling the number of creatures that you have at your disposal. So I essentially have 4 Sacred Cats, and for no added cost and no added space in my deck, I have 4 Zombie Exalted or Sacred Cats as well. And so I have managed to, in a roundabout way, break the rules and the barriers of Constructed. The problem is, though, that we don't have those rules in Pathfinder. You are technically allowed to summon as many Sacred Cats as you want. So then it begs the question of, why would you pick one of these cards when you don't have to? This is not the first time we've come across this. There have been other cards we've said there's no real benefit to taking one of these in Pathfinder. However, the rules will exist regardless. I just don't see it being terribly popular or terribly important, but we have the rules for it anyway. And I guess that's good enough for us. Okay, so we're going to move on. The next one up is Eternalize. And Eternalize is from the Hour of Devastation. Fun. Okay, it is primarily a white and blue, but shows up once in each of the other colors. Story-wise, it is linked to the Eternals, Bolas's army of zombie warriors, mummified through the use of the Iazotep. I mean, see, this is why you can't trust Nicol Bolas in anything. They do not know how to leave stuff alone. Okay, so Eternalize. Exile this card from your graveyard, create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a black zombie, or a 4/4 black zombie, with no mana cost. So, pretty much the same thing that we just did, except that it's not a copy of the creature, it is a black zombie. So right here we've got the Adorned Pouncer, which is another absolutely lovely cat. It costs 2 to play, it's got double strike, which is great, it's a 1/1. However, when you eternalize it, it turns from a 1/1, except that it's a copy. So it is a copy of it, except it's a 4/4 black zombie cat. Does that mean that it keeps its double strike, since it is a copy? That would make it a 4/4 zombie cat with double strike. That right there is a Macetail Histrodon. I mean, I knew that sounds familiar. Macetail Histrodon. Because I have a couple of these. Oh, no, wait, he has first strike, not double strike. Never mind. I give him things to give him double strike. But I mean, double strike actually includes first strike. Double strike is first strike plus normal damage. So it's like a Macetail Histrodon, but worse. Okay, well, essentially we're just going to write this one the same way we did the Embalm. We just have to change a couple of things. So, when this creature dies, you may pay the Eternalize cost as a standard action. Create a 4/4 black zombie version of this creature. Okay, and that should be all we need. Because again, I'm relatively certain that it's going to retain all of its other abilities, including, in this case, the double strike. Hence why it says a copy of this creature. The things that are going to matter is that it must be black, it must be a 4/4, and we've got that. So good enough. Good enough for us. So the next one down is Afflict. And Afflict was also introduced in Hour of Devastation, primarily focused in red but present in blue and black. And I thought I was going to sneeze there. You just hate it when, like, right on the edge of a sneeze, and it's not going to happen, so you have to sit there and wait in limbo. It's awful. Okay, so what does it do? Afflict N, so whenever this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses life. Oh, wonderful! I don't like this already. First off, we have to remember that there is no blocking, and every block is essentially an attack of opportunity. So now let's reread this. Whenever the creature becomes the target of an attack of opportunity, the defending player loses an life. So the defending player then is going to be whoever is controlling the blocking creature, meaning that it's going to be whoever is controlling the creature taking an attack of opportunity. Okay, complicated, but not impossible. So let's look at our example down here. We have Kenra the Eternal, costs 1 black, it's a 2/2, with Afflict 1. Whenever this creature becomes blocked, the defending player loses 1 life. Now, we have to remember these are all dice rolls, and so the way we'll do it is probably going to be, as with the spells, the mana cost being the number of dice and the number on the card being the size of the dice. Meaning that, essentially, when Kenra Eternal becomes the target of an attack of opportunity, it would do 2d1 to the target creature. At least I think that's how we were doing it. Is that how we were doing it? I'm on the page for spells. Okay. The number of dice is the converted mana cost. Yes, the size of the dice is the damage listed. Yeah. So it would do 2d1 damage, and since you can't really roll anything other than a 1 on a one-sided theoretical dice, that means it would just do 2 damage to the controller. Okay, so here's what we're going to do with Afflict. We're going to say, when this creature becomes the target of an attack of opportunity, the controller of the attacker takes the afflict damage. Alright, that should be clear enough. I mean, you can't generally take an attack of opportunity against somebody unless it's their turn, so it's not like we're going to question who the owner or the controller is going to be. I mean, you are the controller, you are the one choosing to take an attack of opportunity. These are the repercussions for your actions. And it's not like it's on very many of these cards. These are cards that mimic it. That's fine. I don't see any of the cards the other cards here that have it. It's fine, though. This should be easy. Yeah, that'll be pretty easy. Okay, what's next? Next is Ascend. That sounds fun. What does this do? Okay, Ascend is a keyword ability that makes you get the city's blessing for the rest of the game if you achieve control of 10 or more permanents. It was introduced in the Rivals of Ixalan and is primarily in white, blue, and black. Okay. There's a couple of things here. First things first, we got to find out exactly what the blessing even is. I think it's on 24 cards, so I mean it's kind of significant. And then we have to figure out how we translate this. So it does say here, once you have the city's blessing, you have it for the rest of the game, even if you lose control of some or all of your permanents. The city's blessing isn't a permanent itself, and it can't be removed by any effect. So I want to see the example they give. The Dusk Charger. Okay. So the Dusk Charger, it is a black creature. It's 3 plus black to play. It's a 3/3 horse. And it has Ascend. If you control 10 or more permanents, yes, we saw that. The Dusk Charger gets +2/+2 as long as you have the city's blessing. Okay, but here's the thing. It sounds as though the city blessing is just like an ethereal thing. It doesn't sound like there's a card or something that gives it. So I mean, technically speaking, if I'm playing any game, I could have the city's blessing. It's just that if I don't have cards that take advantage of the city's blessing, then it doesn't really matter. Meaning that it's kind of almost like an ability that has always existed, just never really been important. However, let's see. I kind of feel like I need to see more of these cards to really understand it. Because the city blessing is just, it's not a thing as far as I can tell. What happens if we follow this? The city blessing, okay. Ah, okay, hold on. City blessing marker. I want to bring this up. So once you have ascended to the highest temple, the power of the immortal sun is yours to wield forever. Okay, so this seems to be just like a token that you can be given if you're playing by these rules. So if you happen to have cards that have city or the ascend mechanic, you would just carry this one with, or this card with you and set it aside, just for in case you get the city blessing. Yeah, it says that it is not a permanent nor an emblem. Nothing can destroy it or otherwise interact with it. The printed card is only used as a reminder. If the player's city blessing designation is destroyed with naturalized 2, that player no longer has city blessing. They can regain it if they control a permanent with ascend or resolve an instant with ascend while controlling 10 or more permanents. This is complicated and I don't like it. I get the feeling I know now why we didn't see a whole lot of this. Ascended doesn't use the stack, can't be responded to once you have it. It did make reappearances in the Lord of the Rings Commander, the Murders of Karlov Manor Commander, and Modern Horizons 3. As many times as I've seen this Modern Horizons stuff, I get the feeling that everything made a comeback in Modern Horizons. Okay. Realistically, I don't see anything that I need to change here. I could literally just copy and paste this, and it would technically be fine. The only thing I have to change is the rest of the game needs to be the rest of combat. Now, is it going to be important? I mean, actually pulling this off would be incredibly difficult, and I think this is actually a comic card, so it might be possible to do this. I'm going to copy this, I'm going to paste it in. So, default formatting, and format, paint. I'm going to change this to say the rest of the combat. Although, technically, what if I were to do this outside of combat? See, again, now we're running up against how long do these spells last? Because what is to stop me from simply walking into the middle of town and summoning an entire army? We have to keep in mind that you can make one standard action per turn. And if summoning a creature is a standard action, that means that you can do 10 creatures in 1 minute. Okay? And I mean, that's kind of a lot. However, that 10 creatures means that if you were to summon a whole bunch of these horses, okay? You got a whole bunch of Dusk Charger ponies. You summon 10 of these, you do so in a minute. And as soon as you summon that 10th one, you get the Blessing of the City, and every Dusk Charger then gains a +2/+2 as long as we have the city's blessing. So how long does that last for? Well, I don't know. However, I could look at something. Hold on a second. Because there is a spell. I'm going to come back here to clerics because this is the quintessential cleric spell. You know what we're going for. You know what it is. We're looking for Bless. After all, it is a blessing. This is one of the most basic spells for the divination spell list. It is a staple for pretty much every single party if you have a divine spellcaster, and it's just great. Bless is very simple. It fills your allies with courage. They get a +1 morale bonus on attack rolls and on saving throws against fear effects. Nobody cares about the saving throws. We all want that +1 on our attack rolls. We want bigger attack rolls. Now, this lasts for 1 minute per level. Now, given that, you get this at like level 1, that means that you get it for 1 minute, which as we just established, that's 10 turns. So you could technically get in 10 attacks with a +1 on them. Higher levels, though, because this has no cap. Okay? Do you see this? There's no cap. Meaning that you can use Bless very, very effectively all the way up through level 20, where you can bless somebody and it lasts for 20 minutes. If we were to do that, then the Blessing of the City could last for 1 minute per level. And that's actually kind of fun. That works, because as I just established, assuming that you had enough spells per day, and I mean, you don't, not until level 4. At level 4, you would be able to pull this off. You summon, it takes you 1 minute to summon 10 horses, and then they get the blessing of the city for 1 minute per level, so that would be another 4 minutes. And I mean, that's a lot. There's 10 rounds per minute. Blessing of the city for 4 minutes, making all of these horses a +5 or a 5/5. That's kind of significant. So I think that's what we'll do. I'm not going to say for the rest of combat. I'm going to say the city's blessing for 1 minute per level. And JP says smite, presumably for the most quintessential divine spell. And you know what? I mean, it's not really a spell, I don't think. Is it in here? No, it's not really a spell. There's Smite Undead, though, I think. There's Holy Smite. So, close enough, I guess. But when you say Smite, I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. That's going to be coming over here to the Paladin, because Paladins get Smite Evil. Or in general, just Smite. So, not really a spell, more of a thing that Paladin's going to do to you. Alright, so, that is Ascend. Now, I wonder if you could, if there was an interesting way to cheese this, I wonder if you could literally give control of creatures to somebody. What if you had, say, 5 planeswalkers, and they were all able to just pass control of their summoned creatures to one person, so that you could get that city blessing? I have no idea, because I've never seen it done in the tabletop game. I know that you can steal control with several different cards, but I've never seen anyone give control. Oh well. Next, Assist. Assist is a keyword introduced in Battle Band, and that lets other players, normally your teammates, help you to cast spells. The helping player may pay up to the total generic mana part of the casting cost, and it was designed by that person. I don't care. So Assist. Another player may pay up to X of this spell's cost. I mean, it seems pretty simple. The example they gave is Huddle Up. It's a blue spell. It costs 2 plus blue to play. And 2 target players each draw a card. Well, first off, this is a pointless card because we're not drawing anything. Otherwise, Assist, another player may pay up to 2 of this spell's cost. This is a weird one. This is a weird one. It's on 16 cards, and I have to presume that some of these cards are, like, actually important cards. Not to say that drawing cards isn't important, but rules, text, Assist. Let's see if this will come up. It did! Okay. So, something that we have. What do we have? And JP says, I cast Assist. Ew. I mean, you know, lately I've been watching a lot of stuff from Punky Doodles, and if you don't know who Punky Doodles is, if you're at all familiar with the YouTube scene when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy in general, they're the, how do I describe them? I want to say kind of crudely drawn, but they're not crudely drawn. That's the actual art style. And I don't have a word for how to describe that art style. But anyway, they do a whole bunch of short videos, and they're the ones who made it, well, not really, they didn't really make it, but they popularized the idea of wizards doing battle with weird spells, such as, I cast Testicular Torsion, which just absolutely incapacitates any other wizard in general, so long as they have testicles. Or the more famous, I cast Mend Butt Crack. Have fun with that one. Anyway, I cast Assist. That would fit right in there. That would fit right there perfectly. Like, you could submit that to them and they might make it a thing. Okay, but I wanted examples, so here we go. Right here we have the Bloodborne Scoundrels. This is a card that costs 5+ black to play. It is a 4/4 vampire rogue creature, and it has Assist, meaning that somebody or another player can cast up to 5 because they can't pay the color. So technically speaking, I do need to have rules here for this. Is there anything that I need to change though? So it lets other players, normally your teammates, help you to cast spells. Now here's something to keep in mind. Your other players are planeswalkers, meaning that they have the ability to tap into mana and cast this anyway. We need to establish that this only applies to planeswalkers. I mean, if you are the only planeswalker on the team and your fellow party members are a fighter and a rogue and a monk, none of them can help you cast this because none of them have the ability to manipulate mana. Let's see. JP says Lightning Storm is is a favorite of theirs. PC Unicorn says Power Word Scrunch. I haven't seen Power Word Scrunch, but it sounds bad. Okay. Anyway. I'm gonna copy this and paste it here. I'm going to default format that. I'm going to delete this little X here. And we'll paint this so it's readable. And let's see, we need to put the X back in here. So they can pay up to X. Why is this? Oh, here we go. X of this spell's cost. Now, we need to put in a caveat here. So, another player can pay up to X of this spell's cost. They must be able to cast Planeswalker spells. Now, I have to put that in there because otherwise anyone will be able to try and do that. And while sometimes that can be circumvented with things like feats, I don't see any feat that's going to give you Planeswalker abilities. Being a Planeswalker is pretty much a dichotomy. You either are or you aren't. You either have the spark or you don't have the spark. And nobody with the spark can, or nobody without the spark can planeswalk. Nobody without the spark can manipulate mana. It just can't be done. So this will pretty much just exclude everyone except another Planeswalker. Now, interestingly though, this would open up avenues for you. Because again, to look at this Bloodborne Scoundrel, as I already said, it costs 5+ black to play. Normally, this would require you to be level 6 just to cast it. But it has assist, meaning that if you were on a team with another Planeswalker, technically speaking, if one of you took this spell at level 3, and this is a common spell, meaning that I really don't see a reason why I could deny you having this. If one of you took this, both of you being level 3 and both of you being able to hold and use 3 mana at one time, one of you contributes 3 mana as an assist, the other one contributes 3 mana as the caster, and together you are able to summon this at level 3. Essentially turning it into a teamwork feat. And if you're not familiar with teamwork feats, of all the different feats that are in Dungeons & Dragons, Pathfinder, whatever, teamwork feats have incredible power because they are so incredibly difficult to pull off. 2 people have to both have the same feat and be able to use them at the same time. They are incredibly fun. Just very situational, but when you can pull them off, it's great. Now, the way this works though, especially with this card, it says that when the Bloodborne Scoundrels enter, target opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Keeping in mind that this number, that's the size of our die, and then the number of dice we're going to throw is going to be equal to the mana cost. Meaning that when this card in particular enters, a target opponent, and you can choose who, would take 6d2 damage, and then you would gain that much life. That is a range of 6 to 12. That's a pretty good spell on its own. I mean, is it going to end the game? No, you're level 3. 6 to 12 damage is significant, but it's certainly not going to be lethal. At least not out the gate. But there's definite possibilities here. I like it. And in this case, you don't need to, like a teamwork feat for both people to have it. Just one person, one, has to have the assist card. And the other person has to be willing to help. So, I like this. I think this is going to be good. Alright, next is Jumpstart. Jumpstart is a keyword ability on instants and sorceries that allows a player to cast a spell from their graveyard for the additional cost of discarding a card. It was introduced in Guilds of Ravnica or for the Izzet League of Ravnica. Okay. Here's the thing. This is another one of those things that's very similar to Embalm. The entire reason why this is in here is because you're only allowed to have 4 spells. And this essentially is going to double the number of spells that you have. So not only can you cast it, but then you can cast it again. We already had spells like this, didn't we? I thought we did. It allows you to cast with the additional option of discarding a card. We don't really have any way to discard either, because there is no hand. Discarding is just not a thing. And it does say here that there is a static first ability and a static second ability. It Since it says the additional cost of discarding a card... Alright. You may cast a card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other cost, then exile this card. I need to see the example they have. So we've got Chemister's Insight. It's a blue spell that costs 3+ blue. Draw 2 cards, and that's it. So, Jumpstart, you may cast this card from your graveyard by discarding a card in addition to paying its other cost, then exile this card. I see no reason for this. I mean, I don't want to ban it, but it's pointless. Because you don't need to cast it from your graveyard. You can just cast the spell again. You gain no benefit in our Pathfinder game to using the Jumpstart effect here. I mean, for starters, there's no way to discard anyway, so that's irrelevant. I'm not going to ban it, but here's the thing. This Jumpstart thing, it's not banned. It's not applicable. It literally has no effect. And we can just leave it at that. I mean, it has a reason and purpose for being in the card game, but just not here. There's no reason why you would do it. So move on to Mentor. I want to get to a bunch of these, and we're making good progress, so let's keep this gravy train rolling. Mentor is a keyword ability, introducing Guilds of Ravnica for the Boros Legion. Who's the Boros Legion? I have no idea. It's on 16 cards, primarily in white and red. I'm going to go ahead and just assume they're the White-Red Guild. Okay, but what does it do? Whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. Okay, that's simple. So let's translate this. Whenever this creature attacks, we're going to give or grant a +1 strength, +1 constitution counter bonus on target attacking creature with lesser strength. Because it didn't mention toughness, it only mentioned power, and that's going to be strength. And that should be all we need. Now, the problem here is that in Magic the Gathering, you're allowed to attack with more than one creature at a time. In Pathfinder, they all have their own individual turns, and so that's not an option. So we have to find a way to write around this. It says whenever this creature attacks. Okay, I think I know how to do this. So, I'm going to say after making an attack until next turn, if another creature you control with strength less than the mentor attacks, grant that creature a +1 strength and +1 constitution counter bonus. until end of combat. Okay. And that should be fine, I think. JP says, consider it an AoE. No, not an AoE. I mean, first off, that doesn't quite make a whole lot of sense, but it very specifically is targeted. It says, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature with lesser power. So, like, the exact opposite of any kind of AoE. But this should be fine. So, if our mentor makes an attack, and until the next turn, if another creature that I control with strength less than the mentor attacks, grant that creature a +1/+1 Constitution counter. Now, this is actually going to be a little bit better, because technically speaking, the mentor creature can only target one other creature. So if I've got a mentor and I've got 3 little goblins, and I attack with everything, the mentor can only grant its bonus to 1 goblin. By the writing of this rule, technically speaking, if I attack with the mentor first, every single goblin that I attack with after that would get the same mentor bonus, which means that they would really rocket up in strength and constitution quickly. Now, that also has less of an effect, because strength is not going to be as substantial as it is in Magic the Gathering. That being said, though, having a whole bunch of goblins getting bigger, we have to keep in mind something. Because of our size categories over here, let's say that I have 1/1 goblins and I have a 4/4 mentor. So my 4/4 mentor is a medium creature just by virtue of having power plus toughness of 8. All of my goblins have power plus toughness of 2, they're small. This means that every time my mentor attacks, they get +1/+1 strength constitution. That means that after 1 turn, all of my little goblins would be 2 2s. They would still be small. After the second turn, though, they all become 3 3s, which makes them medium. Now, one of the things that I haven't decided yet is, do they get bonuses based on their size? Because technically speaking, as a creature increases in size, its strength increases, its constitution increases, its dexterity usually goes down, and there's a few other bonuses that go with it. I don't think that I'm going to do that, because that would be a lot to keep track of. But it is something to keep in mind. So I think this is going to work. And, you know, to your point, JP, that actually does kind of make it an AoE. Because it is going to affect every one of my creatures after my mentor makes their attack. So, yeah, it is affecting an area. That does, by default, make it an AoE. And JP says, this is overpowered. Yes and no. Yes and no. So again, we have to keep in mind that we're just giving a +1 strength and +1 constitution bonus. That means that if I've got a 1/1 goblin, that means it has strength of 11 and constitution of 11, in addition to whatever else I decide to give it. That's not much. That's not much at all. By giving it a +1/+1 strength constitution bonus, that means that it's going to get, or it'll become 12 strength and it'll get a +1 bonus just by having, 12 strength. It'll also get a +1 constitution, which means that it will get +1 hit point per level. It'll probably be the same level as the planeswalker. So if it's like a level 3 planeswalker, it'll pick up 3 additional hit points. It's not much. Now, we can keep doing that over and over again, and eventually, yes, technically, it could become a very strong goblin, but in general, it's not much. Okay, and JP says goblins are small. If made large, they'd be clumsy. Minus or plus strength, minus accuracy. Actually, we already kind of have that. So, where is it? It's gonna be under combat. Game mastering, combat. Here we go. Space reach. Okay, we've been on this page a lot. It's come in very handy. This is everything about the map logistics when it comes to combat. But creature sizes. Okay. So, if you have a medium creature, it has no size modifier, it has no special modifiers, it has no size modifier to flying, no size modifier to stealth. It takes up a 5x5 square, so that's 1 square. They're typically anywhere from 4 to 8 feet tall and weigh anywhere from 60 to 500 pounds, okay? This is our baseline. Now, here's where we get into other things. So when we start changing sizes, a medium to a small creature, so it gets a +1 size modifier. Now this +1 size modifier applies to things like their armor class because they're harder to hit. It also applies to things like, you know, just other things. Now, special size modifier. And we can actually look down to here. It's all in tiny text, but yeah, the size modifier, this applies to its attacks and armor classes. So it's easier for them to hit larger creatures, and it's harder for them to be hit by larger creatures. The special size modifier applies to its combat maneuver bonus and combat maneuver defenses. After all, I think we all want to just pick up a goblin and throw one, right? Well, guess what? Goblins are small. And so it's much easier to throw one like a football. The size modifier to fly, size modifier to stealth, I don't really care about those. But we can tell that they still take up the same amount of space, but they're only 2 to 4 feet tall. And so we've got that. But more importantly, I'm going to use this page because I want to go back to spells. There are spells to grow and shrink. And right here, enlarge person. Alright, so with enlarge person, this is a pretty basic spell. It's a transmutation spell. You can get it at level 1. Targets one humanoid creature, lasts for 1 minute per level. This spell causes the instant growth of a humanoid creature, doubling its height, multiplying its weight by 8. This increase changes the creature's size category to the next larger one. It gains a +2 size bonus to strength, a -2 size penalty to dexterity, and a -1 penalty on attack rolls and AC due to its increased size. Just like we saw in the space reach. Oop, went too far. When a creature becomes large, specifically tall, the size modifier gives it a -1 on its armor class and attack rolls because it's harder to hit smaller things. However, it does get a +1 on its combat maneuver bonus and defense. So, same thing. So this would increase, like I said, strength by 2. So whatever they have, strength goes up by 2. A -2 size penalty to dexterity. And, of course, if we were shrinking somebody, which there is that spell, this would be reversed. So they would take a -2 size penalty to their strength and a +2 size size penalty to their dexterity. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So here's the table with the size modifiers. If they're going from no. It doesn't matter. Point is, it changes things. And one of the things that we could do is we could use this when we're making our character sheets, because again, you're going to need to have character sheets for all of your summons. They're not going to be big character sheets. They're going to be little character sheets, easy to fill out, easy to reference. They will have the bare bones information on them, and that is it. Why? Because you're going to need to have them easy to access, and they need to be easily modifiable. What we could do is we could say, you know what? Goblins are a small creature. So normally speaking, a 1/1 goblin would have 11 strength and 11 constitution. However, it's small. So why don't we go ahead and say, because it is small, we'll just take the rules for reduce person, which is on here. So, come on. Oh, my computer's freaking out, that's why. You have to do this in the middle of the stream, don't you? I wish I knew exactly what driver was your problem so that I could rip it out, tie it into a pretzel, and then force feed it back to one of your USB slots. Alright, well, let's see if I can actually navigate to the next page. Assuming, of course, that the stream is even still working while my computer is losing its mind. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Alright, everything's better now. Reduce person. So if we applied this to our goblin, that means that its strength would go from being 11, because it's a 1/1 goblin, down to 9. We're going to take 2 away from that. The dexterity will be set by the creature type. And so dexterity will go up by 2 regardless. There's nothing here that affects constitution, meaning that doesn't change. So what we would end up is a goblin with 9 strength, 11 constitution, and then whatever we happen to fill in for the rest of them. Again, we need to keep this easy. And so by using these very, very basic modifications, we could adjust for size. Oh, and everyone says that the stream was still working, so that's good to know. When my computer flips its lid, the stream still works. Fantastic to know. Okay. This also means that as the creatures are mentoring, technically speaking, that, you know, once they hit that third turn and they're now a 3/3 creature, they increase in size. And I'm not sure how we're going to keep track of this either. This is going to get a little bit complicated. But once they hit 3/3 and they now become medium, they're going to get that strength bonus back. So their strength will essentially go up by 3 that turn. Their dexterity would go down. And we'd be able to keep track of how these creatures grow. Which sounds complicated, but it is very, very canon. Because planeswalkers modify their creatures all the time. They're always casting instant sorceries, enchantments, things like that on their creatures to make them better. They're literally putty in the planeswalker's hand because they're not actually creatures. They're just an echo of a creature they saw once. And so while they can do things like use Dragon's Breath on one of their creatures, they can't, say, cast the Dragon's Breath spell on a wandering house cat. It just wouldn't work. It would be incompatible. Similarly, they're not allowed to do it to themselves either. At least as far as I know. I may need to do some research into that. But okay, Mentor. Simple enough. But the consequences of having a mentor character on the field could be rather wide-ranging. Okay, moving on though. Afterlife. It's a keyword ability found on creatures similar to Doomed, Doomed Traveler from Innistrad, potentially named after Afterlife. Oh, PC Unicorn says Colossification has one of my favorite flavor texts. Right, let me pull that one up, because that should be easy. Colossification. Collision course. Hold on. Am I spelling this wrong? Colossification. Okay, it can't find that. Let me make sure I'm spelling this right. Let me make sure I'm spelling this right. Come on, slow phone. Why does technology hate me today? Here we go. Colossification. Oh, that's what I did wrong. Okay, I see. Two S's. Colossification. Here we go. There it is. I knew I could find it. Yeah, so Colossification. It is a green spell that costs 5 plus 2 green to play. It is an enchant creature. It is an aura, which means that it sticks with that creature. When Colossification enters, tap the enchanted creature because it is in the process of growing, I presume. The enchanted creature gets plus 20, plus 20. And just before I get to the flavor text that PC Unicorn was talking about, I just want to point this out, that when we look at sizes, a total of 20 would make a creature gargantuan. Meaning that Colossification, which gives a creature a combined power toughness of 40, puts it well and above into the actual colossal territory. So even if we were to cast this on a 1/1 goblin, that would make it a 21/21 goblin with a combined power and toughness of 42. And again, before I get to the flavor text, let's keep in mind that goblins are technically a tall creature, not a long creature. And if we come down here to a colossal tall, they occupy a space of 30 feet by 30 feet. Meaning, I'm going to come back here for a moment, and I'm going to find myself... Actually, no, I have goblins down here. So, let me just zoom in. We still have our little tokens here from last time, and I've got these little goblins. Okay, here's our little goblin. Let's say that you are this little chibi bard right here. This is you. And somebody casts Colossification on the goblin. This square is 5 feet by 5 feet. This is 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And because it is a small creature, it doesn't actually take up everything, but you can see the outline around it, just, you know, how big this thing is. Essentially, I wonder if I can put an aura on it. Can I put an aura on it? Radius of, let's see, I'm going to make it red, just so it stands out more. And I'm going to call it a radius of 1 foot. Good enough. So there is our colossified goblin, and this is its actual footprint. By the way, just to put this into consideration, the space is 30 feet. The reach is another 30 feet. So I'm going to use a second aura here, and I'm going to call this one yellow. I wonder if I can do 0. Okay. So this is our colossified goblin. The red circle is the footprint. The yellow is the reach. Yes, this goblin here can touch you this far away. And it will do so with a +10 to its attack, which pretty much negates its size problems. So yes, this is colossification in all of its horror. To which it says, let's see. Turns out the case of the flattened outpost and the case of the missing kitten were related. Also, I would just like to point out that by the rules of the cat distribution system, this is still part of the Felidae family, which means that you can take it home. I just want to put that out there for everybody. Okay, so that was fun. And JP says, okay, is it single target, or could you say cast that on a jar of beetles and create a giant armored swarm? That is a complicated question. Okay, we're going to go ahead and we're actually going to deviate here because that is a really good question. And it's not one with a good answer, because technically speaking, colossification, as well as any enlarge or whatever, is a single target spell. But, and this is important, if I come down here to vermin, there is something called a swarm. And let's see if I can find it. Let me find a swarm in here. Screw it, I'm going to search it. Okay, swarms. Here we go. Except not what. Here we go. Perfect. You wanted beetles. You wanted beetles? I got a beetle swarm. Sure. Here we go. Scarab beetle swarm. So, if I wanted to throw a swarm of insects at my players, that is an option. It says this is a mass of iridescent blue-black insects that emit a foul stench and a faint chorus of thousands of clicking and clacking jaws that can be heard from all sides. So I have scarab beetles that I can use, but in general those are large scarab beetles. And I mean they're the size of a house cat. But then we have these. This is a swarm of just regular insects. Now, because it is a swarm, it has the following traits. And I gotta find it in here. So a swarm is a collection of fine, diminutive, or tiny creatures that acts as a single creature. They move together, they attack together, they react together, they save together, they all act as one. It has the characteristics of its type except as noted here. A swarm has a single pool of hit dice and hit points, a single initiative module or modifier, single speed, single armor class. It makes saving throws as a single creature. It occupies a single square if it's made up of non-flying creatures, or a cube if it's made of flying creatures, 10 feet on a side, but its reach is 0 feet, which means in order for it to attack you, it actually has to occupy the same space as you. Unlike when you're fighting a normal creature where you're not allowed to occupy the same space. They're the exception. They have to. Let's see. Like each of its component creatures, in order to attack, it moves into the opponent's space, which does provoke attack of opportunity. A swarm can occupy the same space as a creature of any size. Since it crawls all over its prey, it can move through squares occupied by enemies and vice versa without impediment. Although swarms provoke attack of opportunities if they do so, however, I do believe that if you move through the swarm, they get an attack of opportunity. It's made up of tiny creatures of 300 non-flying insects or 1,000 flying insects. A swarm of diminutive is 1,500 non-flying or 5,000 flying. So, like, it doesn't matter. It has no clear front or back, so you can't flank it or anything like that. A swarm is immune to any spell or effect that targets a specific number of creatures, including single target spells such as Disintegrate, with the exception of mind affecting effects such as charms, compulsions, morale effects, etc., etc. If the swarm has an intelligence score and a hive mind, it takes half as much damage from spells and if their affect an area, such as splash weapons and many evocation spells. Now, the important part here is, it is immune to spells or effects that target a specific number of creatures, and that includes 1. Which means that you could not just colossify the swarm. Not that you could do that anyway, because these are real and they're not, summoned creatures. But I can't use, like, enlarge monster on this either. I could enlarge one of them. But I can't actually target the whole swarm. So, while it is kind of a good idea, it just doesn't actually work out that way. And that, it's a good question. Okay, it's a really good question, and I can see where you're going with that one. Unfortunately, if you just were to cast it on the jar, you would just enlarge the jar. And then everything else inside of it are individual pieces. JP says, no need to siege that castle. Just climb the mountain above it with a jar of marbles, and voila, castle be gone. Yeah, it doesn't quite work that way. However, I mean, there are things that you could do. I mean, it doesn't have to be an entire jar of marbles. It could just be one marble made enormous. Then again, I mean, if you could get into the castle, though, you could use something like enlarge person on anything in there. I mean, let's imagine that you could actually colossify an actual animal. Could you imagine turning, say, a horse into a colossal animal? How much damage would a horse do before they could get control of it again? There are possibilities. It just depends on how creative you want to get. Okay. So let's get back to this. We've only got about 20 minutes or so left, so I want to finish up as many of these as we can. Next up is Afterlife. And I'm looking at Afterlife, and it looks a lot like Embalm. So when this creature dies, create a number of 1/1 white and black spirit creature tokens with flying. That sounds kind of terrifying. So the example they give is the Imperious Oligarch. It's a white-black creature, which sounds like it comes from Orzhov. It's a 2/1 with vigilance, and it has Afterlife 1. When this creature dies, create a 1/1 white and black spirit token. What gets me, though, is that it says a number of those tokens. It's on 10 cards. I have to wonder what creatures would leave more than one behind. So go ahead and search that. Yay, it came up. Okay, Afterlife Insurance. No. Ah, here we go. The Doctor's Transport. It costs 5 plus black. And this has Afterlife 2. So it's a 5/3 creature, and when this dies, create 2 1/1 white-black spirit tokens. This is weird. One creature dies, and then you get 2 afterwards. There's the Imperious Oligarch, or Imperious, excuse me. The Indebted Spirit has Afterlife 1. The Knight of Sorrows has Afterlife 1. Here we go. Knight of the Last Breath has Afterlife 3. It's uncommon, so it's not... or the odds of you getting it are pretty low, but not impossible. It's a very expensive card. It costs 5 plus white-black. It's a 4/4, and when it dies, it creates 3 spirits. How does one soul become 3 spirits? I don't know. Does he have plans after he's dead? Is he going to go, like, haunt Scrooge? I'm not sure. Well... doesn't really matter, because all that matters is we have to translate the rules. So, it's very simple. All I gotta do is just copy this, because there's nothing I really need to change. When this creature dies, that doesn't change. Create a number of 1/1 white-black spirit creature tokens. That's it. It's perfect, honestly. I can't write it better myself. And JP says, I've got it. Use a starfish in the castle scenario. I don't know what that is. JP also says he's Catholic. It's the 3-soul problem. I'm unfamiliar with that. Although I can guess, 3-soul problem, I assume it's something to do with the Holy Trinity. But I don't know that much about it. However, I am intrigued enough to learn about it later. Alright, for right now, though, we're going to move on to Riot. So, Riot is a keyword ability that allows you to choose between gaining a +1/+1 counter or haste when a creature enters the battlefield. It was introduced in the Ravnica Allegiance for the Gruul clans. Who is they? Since it's primarily on red and green, and then exclusively on only red and green, yeah, I'm going to guess they're the red-green guild. Alright, so, Riot. A creature enters with your choice of a +1/+1 counter or haste. Honestly, there's not much I have to do here. It's pretty straightforward. The only thing I have to do is change a little bit of the wording. So we're going to go ahead and default format that, and then we're going to paint it so it's readable. And all we really have to change is this. It's going to be a +1 strength and a +1 constitution. Counter bonus or haste, because we have to be more specific. And that's it, really. You get one or the other. It's your choice. It's done as soon as it comes in. It's great. Let's see. And JP says, the starfish in the castle scenario, a starfish regrows itself. I mean, kinda. This, first off, number one, the spell's not going to last that long. So, by the time the starfish gets around to regrowing something, it's not going to be big anymore. And secondly, I'm pretty sure that they only regrow their limbs if the main body is still alive. If you cut off an arm, I don't think the arm can regrow a whole new starfish. I think starfish are just a little bit too advanced for that. And I mean, I say a little bit too advanced because there's not a whole lot to a starfish. However, flatworms, nematodes, things like that actually do have the ability to regrow their entire head. And that's kind of because there's not really much to the head of a flatworm or a nematode. It's pretty much just where the mouth is. As far as, like, brain, they don't really have a brain. They have, like, a central nerve cord, and even then it's a very rudimentary one. just enough to perceive their environment and to react to their environment. That's it. They don't really even have perception, usually. They just move around until they bump into something and try to eat it. And if it's edible, they eat it. And if it's not edible, they don't. And they keep bumping into other things trying to eat that. I mean, if you think of it kind of like a shark, the reason why sharks eat so many things is because everything is just edible to them until it's not. The only way they know not to eat it is to eat it first. Okay, I may have time for one or two more, so let's see what we can do. Next is Spectacle. Spectacle's keyword ability gives an alternative cost. You can cast spells for its spectacle cost if the opponent lost life during this turn. It was introduced in Ravnica Allegiance for the Cult of Rakdos. Okay. So, I'm going to go ahead and assume that they're the Black-Red team, or guild, because that's all the spells. There's a whole 11 cards with it. You may cast a spell for its spectacle cost rather than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. This could be really useful. This could be very useful. Because... well, actually, it does say this turn. By saying this turn, it would have to be on your turn. Not since your last turn. Okay. This is where those swift actions are going to come in. This is where those swift actions are going to come in, because casting a spell. Let me take a look at what they've got here. So here's the Rixmatty Reveler. It costs 1 plus red to play. It's a 2/2 creature. And the spectacle cost is 2 plus black-red. I thought they would get cheaper. When the Rixmatty Reveler enters the battlefield, discard a card, then draw a card. If Rixmatty Reveler's spectacle cost was paid, instead discard your hand and then draw 3 cards. Okay, so like that is completely useless for us. That being said, though, it's a good example. So the spectacle cost does come with an additional effect. The next one is Light Up the Stage. It costs 2 plus red to play and has a spectacle cost of 1, so this one actually does get cheaper. If you pay the spectacle cost, exile the top 2 cards of your library until the end of your next turn, and then you may play those cards. That's... again, not terribly useful for us, but I understand the point. Regardless, these cards have no real use to us. But that doesn't mean there's none of them that do. And so, what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this wholesale. We don't need to change anything here. So we're going to default that and paint it. So you may cast a spell for its spectacle cost rather than its mana cost if an opponent lost life this turn. So, given that, what do we have here? This one is a sorcery, this one is a creature. Both of these are standard actions. If you had an instant spell, or if you could make an attack as a swift action, like, you'll be a fully fledged character, okay? Unlike in the game where you're restricted to just casting spells, you as playing a planeswalker will have, you know, equipment. You'll be able to get feats. You'll be able to do all the things that every normal character can do. It's just that in addition, you will also be a planeswalker and you can do these things. If you have an action where, say, you can throw a knife as a swift action, and I don't necessarily know what that would be off the top of my head, but if you had that, if you could fling a knife as a swift action, and if you actually wounded them with it, you could then create a spectacle, casting the spell, and getting your other effect. So I think this is going to work out well. Okay. One more then. One more. After Spectacle is Escape. This is also Ravnica. No, it's not. Here we go. So, Escape is a keyword ability introduced in Theros Beyond Death, where it was connected with the Returned escaping from Nyx. Spells with Escape can be cast from the graveyard for their escape cost. The cost includes exiling a number of other cards from the graveyard. If a creature escapes, it may receive an additional bonus. Okay, that's complicated. So the reminder text here says, you may cast this card from your graveyard for its escape cost. Now, what is the escape cost? We only have one example here. And it's the Chain Web Arachnir. It's a giant spider. It's a Chain Web Arachnid, okay? So it costs green to play. It's a 1/2. It does have reach, which is nice. When it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying and opponent controls. However, it also has escape. And the escape cost is 3 plus 2 green. And exile 4 other cards from your graveyard. You do that, you may cast it from your graveyard. Here's the thing, though. Why? Why would you do that? Well, the reason here is because when it escapes, it does so with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. And that's a really good reason, because it's a 1/2 to begin with, and when it comes in with 3/1/1 counters, which is going to make it a 4/5. And when it enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature with flying and opponent controls. And so it just went from dealing 1 damage to 4 damage to somebody. We don't have anything for exile. We just don't. And since there's no graveyard, really, I don't know how we're going to handle this. I may have to handle some of these cards on an individual basis, like this one. It does have an escape cost, and so I can absolutely do this. I'm just going to copy this in wholesale because this is a very basic instruction. There's nothing I really need to modify here. It'll be the individual cards I have to deal with. But it says you may cast this card from your graveyard. We don't really have one. So instead, do we have any instants or sorceries for this? I wonder. Because this is going to kind of change things. Okay, Bloodbraid Challenger, Cascade, Haste, and Escape. Here's the Spider. It has Escape. It's a creature. The Charred Grave Robber is a creature. It has Escape. Here we go. The Chronomatic Escape. Oh no, never mind. That has Suspend 3. Yeah. So never mind. Here we go. Cling to Dust. This one is appropriate. It does have escape. It's an instant. So exile target card from your graveyard. If it's a creature card, you gain 3 life. Otherwise, you draw a card. And then it has escape, which costs 4. Exile 5 cards from your graveyard. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its escape cost. And again, it wants me to exile cards. The only thing that I can think of in the immediate is to simply remove the exile other cards from the graveyard part, because we don't really have a graveyard. However, they do still have a mana cost to be paid, and so I believe I can leave it that way. So what I will say is that you may cast this card a second time. You may cast this card a second time without using a spell per day for its escape cost. And by doing that, it should satisfy everything that we need. It doesn't apply to any card that you have, or any instance of the spell that you have not already played before. So you have to play it the first time before you can play it a second time. And then, when it comes back, the escape thing takes effect. And that should be everything that we need. I mean, I hope. It seems good. I'm going to go with it. Okay, with that though, I am out of time, unfortunately. But let's take a look at what we did. Because we left off with Partner because Partner was not applicable, but we did Undaunted, Improvise, Aftermath, Embalm, Eternalize, Afflict, Ascend, Assist, Jumpstart, Mentor, Afterlife, Riot, Spectacle, and Escape. That is 14. I wanted to get about, 10 to 20 done, and 14, we're right in the middle. So that's good progress. I like that. All right, next up is going to be Companion. We're not into things that I'm seeing in the special like franchise decks. Not yet anyway. But what is Companion, just out of curiosity? This one comes from Ikoria, the Lair of Behemoths. That's another official set. So yeah, we're still in the mainstream Magic stuff. There's a lot to do still. But okay, that's fine. We're going to work through every single one of them one at a time as we have to. I'm looking forward to this though. This is going to be a very interesting series when we get around to actually playing it. There are so many rules that even with some of the cards banned or just not being usable, there is not going to be two Planeswalkers who are going to have identical kits. It's very possible to have an entire party of Planeswalkers and no one to have duplicate spells. There's just that many of them. And that's going to be a good thing. JP says, look under Doctor Who. Absolutely not. I'm not doing the Doctor Who stuff. I'm not doing it. I'm not touching any of the franchise sets, okay? Because I'm not bringing those worlds into mine. I have no interest in introducing the Doctor into any campaign that I'm working on. And the reason why is because they just wouldn't fit. Now, technically speaking, I could do it. And let me explain why that would just be an absolutely terrible idea. The reason why is because there is a Warhammer 40k Magic the Gathering set. Okay? It exists. It exists. Hold on. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Magic the Gathering 40k. Oops, I can't type. That's 30k. That's pre-heresy. Here we go. Let me just slide that down a little bit. There is, in their okay, Universes Beyond 40k. Now, for anybody who wasn't here for it, I spent a year and a couple of months extra, like 14 months, making an entire Warhammer 40k module. Do you really want me to put a Space Marine into your campaign? Because that's what it would do. And I mean, we all agreed when we did the 40k campaign that we were not going to make playable Space Marines because Space Marines are too overpowered. It's impossible to balance them. So, no, we're not doing that. There will be no Warhammer 40k in my games. The same thing is also true of the Doctor. Is the Doctor friendly? Yes. Is he mild-mannered? Yes. Does he go on all kinds of quirky adventures? Sure. Is he also simultaneously one of the most powerful beings in existence? And not just current existence, because he's a Time Lord. He's one of the most powerful beings in all existence, everywhere, at all times. The Doctor is a god, by every definition we have, which is why none of the franchise decks are coming in. Don't care what it is, don't care where it's from, it's not happening. Which is why when we start getting into some of the keywords that come specifically from those franchise decks, from the universes beyond, we can skip all of them. Now, we haven't come across any of them yet. I expect to come across a lot of them as we get closer to the end. But it's not happening. Okay, and no, not a rabbit hole. Just need to put that out there because that needs to be prefaced in great big bold letters. We are not doing it. Alright, though. So with that out of the way, that great big, banner of just no, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to wrap things up here. We made good progress today. We still got a lot more to go, though. Not too much longer, but it'll still be maybe a handful of streams before we can finally call these done. It's been a lot of work. But you know what? That's what I'm here for. So, if you want to see how much more work we can get done next time, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, that way you get notified every time this comes out. Not we get notified, I already know what's going on. You get notified. If you know somebody else who's also into either tabletop games like Pathfinder or into card games like Magic the Gathering, then go ahead and share this video with them. Otherwise, though, if you like me, you like what I'm doing, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below. However, more importantly, if you want to play with us, you have to join the Discord. I have a Discord server. It's free. It's open. You can do it. You have to join the Discord server, come to the Behind the Screen channel. I need you to let me know what game you want to play, what your availability is, and then, once I have enough people with a similar time slot and similar interest, I can go ahead and put that into motion. So, do that, come join us, we'll play games together, it's going to be great, and until then, well, till I see you next time at least, take care.